The thing about entrepreneurs is we tend to get really into our own processes and our own ways of doing things, our own ideas of how things should be. And it can be really difficult to allow somebody else to step in and tell you, hey, let's try this a little differently. It can be scary, right?
Hey everybody, welcome to the Workergenics Mastermind podcast. Today we are talking about fractional COOs, who needs them, and what the process is like and what the benefits are. So if you've something that you've been considering and you're struggling with your finances, we have an expert here, Mallory Smith, who's going to talk us through what it's all about. Mallory is an accomplished entrepreneur with a background in many different business industries and has a passion for helping small businesses, travel, and public speaking. Mallory, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I'm so glad to be here.
So Mallory, tell everyone a little bit more about your background. What led you to being this fractional COO?
Yeah, so I would say that my background is a bit of a crooked road, but it's really serves me well in this field just because I'm able to take knowledge from so many different sectors I've been a part of throughout my career and really apply them to different types of businesses and different experiences. So, straight out of college, I was in more of a scientific field. I worked in the biotech industry and then moved over from there into cosmetic chemistry and personal care products, basically formulating hair care and skincare. And it's at that point that I realized I'm way too social to be stuck in a lab. I would annoy the other chemists, so because I talk too much. And so I continued with that job and got my MBA at the same time and decided to move more into business-facing roles. So just did some dental sales for a while. I've got a pretty deep background in the dental industry with my family. And then after that, I became an entrepreneur. I decided, I was tired of managers that I thought I could do better. And so I figured I'd put my money where my mouth was. And I started a sign company. And so I was able to build that up over a 4-year time span and through the COVID shutdown and everything. And I was able to successfully exit that business with a 4x return on investment. So I've got experience from startup, building into a 7-figure business, and then managing a sale and an exit from it. So all of that to say, I've got a range of experiences and I would say firsthand being an entrepreneur. So it gives me a unique ability to connect with other entrepreneurs and help them, which is where my heart really is.
Yeah, that background sounds perfect for helping people from the science, the data, getting the masters, and then of course, experience in sales, entrepreneurship, and everything. So it sounds like you have kind of landed in a perfect fit for your experience. Tell us more about who would be a person who might need a fractional CEO? What kind of situation would they be in? What should they be thinking about?
So as a fractional COO, I focus on operations consulting. And so the people that I'm looking to work with are 7-figure businesses. They've got some experience. They've got some growth under their belt. They would either be in a growth phase right now and they are maybe having trouble managing the growth or getting organized through it. They can't sleep at night. They've got way too much going on. They don't know how to delegate their employees. I know you know a little bit about delegation in your business. It's moved too fast for them. And they would potentially bring someone like me in to kind of take a bird's eye view, look at everything, take some of those hats off of the CEO and business owner so that, they can focus on what they like and what they're good at. And then how do we get buy-in from the employees? How do we get the employees on track with the vision and the processes? And really, it's a long-term goal as far as identifying the vision and the operations and then documenting them. But, there's some things that you can do quickly to help relieve some of those pain points. So the growth phase is one. Another person who would really benefit from this is those same 7-figure businesses, but maybe more of someone who's looking to step out of their business. So whether that be take less of a hands-on role and really get that into the hands of their employees and make it a self-functioning operation, or someone who's looking to exit and wants to have a sellable business that they can hand off to the next owner and have it successfully continue if that owner is trained up and willing to learn.
Awesome. So you're able to come in and, do kind of two different, big picture things, making the businesses more profitable and taking a load off the owner. And so what a great opportunity that is for people. What kind of time commitment would a business owner have working with you? Are they going to see 20 hours, 40 hours a week of stuff taken off their plate, or what does that kind of look like for them?
So as far as my interaction with the business owner, it's really, 5 to 8 hours a week as far as working hand in hand with them or dedicating my time towards their business. You could expect weekly meetings and, out of those weekly meetings, depending on what the pain points are, would kind of dictate how many additional hours it could free up for the business owner. So it may not always be an immediate relief. There's a lot of things that have to happen behind the scenes to get that organization going, but it's something that definitely builds over time. And you never want to just jump straight out of a business and hope that it continues going and continues floating. You really need to do the hard work and put in the time to put these processes in place before you start to step away. So it's not exactly a clear answer to your question, but it's kind of gives you a general overview of what to expect. And of course, each situation is different.
So, in general terms, what kind of timeline do most people need to engage a fractional COO to get those kind of results?
We plan to work with people over a 2-year time span. If we're with those companies forever, we're not doing something right. They shouldn't need to rely on us, or if they grow to a certain point, they may want a full-time COO on their staff, and at which point, that's beyond what my time commitment and my current abilities in this type of business would be. So either we solve some of their problems and they're able to successfully step away and let their businesses run on its own, or we do a really good job and they grow past the point where they need a full-time person. So ideally, that would be about a 2-year timeline for either situation.
So what are some of the major changes or things that you most typically see when you're working with these business owners that sometimes there might be some pushback with?
The thing about entrepreneurs is we tend to get really into our own processes and our own ways of doing things, our own ideas of how things should be. And it can be really difficult to allow somebody else to step in and tell you, hey, let's try this a little differently. It can be scary. Right? We're creatures of habit. We get so buried into the chaos that we've created for ourselves. And we just say that, oh, this is normal. You never get anywhere without working hard. You never get anywhere without sacrifice. And there is some truth to that. Like, you can't be lazy and build a successful business, but you don't have to suffer and you don't have to torture yourself in order to get to success, fulfillment, and all of the other great things that comes with being an entrepreneur. I do not know everything by any means. I am only human at the end of the day. But, I'm really looking for people who see that there needs to be a change and are open to hearing somebody else's opinion on what that change is. And then, we work together in a partnership to figure out what changes could be made to where it works best for the business owner and the business and my process behind the scenes. So it will be uncomfortable. There's especially for the people who are in that exiting phase where they've built this business up over however many years, could be 10, could be 40 years. And, they're trying to step out and they're like, well, we've always done it this way. And that's my favorite and least favorite quote all in the same time. I'm like, okay, well, if we've always done it this way, then I know there's got to be some room for improvement. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it is the best way. It's just something that has, maybe gotten you to this point, that we can always do something to do a little bit better or get to a new place. Because you'll never get somewhere new by doing the same old stuff.
Now, are there any kind of recommended prep work, whether it's just kind of mindset or actual changes in a business that someone might want to start thinking about, as they're coming to start talking and engaging with you? Or can they just kind of start out and say, hey, Mallory, I'm overwhelmed, or I want to exit my business soon. I want to increase my valuation. How do we get started?
The only thing that I look for when someone is ready to work with me is that they are at 7-figure mark. Because if I start to work with a business that maybe isn't ready for me yet financially, I don't feel like I would be the best use of their resources. I would hate to drain their cash flow and not get to it and not to the finish line before we have really been able to get good momentum going. And so it's businesses that have established themselves. They've got some growth under their belt. They've got some room in their finances to bring someone like me on. That would be really the starting point for me. Other than that, yeah, they don't need to have, a whole lot of prep work going in. You start putting in all this work to get there. And so that'll lay the groundwork and the prep work that you're talking about for the rest of what we do is just one-on-one time with the CEO to say, okay, what are you looking to accomplish? How do you want to feel in this business? How do you want your employees to engage? What are your core values? A lot of people haven't taken the time to identify all of that, and they're just looking at money in, money out, which is important and that's great. But that's why we always start with the vision work, is just because it lays the foundation and the path for everything else.
Love it. Now, Mallory, for those people that are maybe not quite at that seven-figure mark, do you have any tips for them on the ways they can take some of the strategies that you share with people at the higher level that they might be able to take a portion of and kind of start applying to themselves to help them get to that level?
Absolutely. So, just in my time owning the sign company as an entrepreneur, I was able to find lots of free resources out there. I mean, it's available if you look for it, and you have to be hungry and you have to be curious enough to go after those resources. But I mean, you don't necessarily need to hire a fractional COO as a small business to get some of these ideas. It's born out of necessity, really. It's when you've got enough going on in your business, it really creates the necessity to bring someone like me in. So for those businesses that are still trying to build towards those things, I would say, having a clear idea of what your financials are on a month-to-month basis and really paying attention is probably one of the best things you can do for yourself. So when I was running my business, I was almost annoyingly specific with my P&L every single month. I was watching every single expense. I was watching every income. I was thinking about ways of how I can buy materials in bulk in order to save money on the front end. It's an investment at that point. You're paying more upfront. As far as a per job expense, I was able to get some of my costs down and my profits up. So I would say paying attention to your profit margin at the end of the day is one of the best things that you can do, because you get ahead of the game and you have an awareness of your business that most people, when they get into trouble, they don't figure out that there's an issue there until it's too late.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's something that we see a lot. People come to us and they're like, I need better insight into my books. And so getting a assistant to has skills in bookkeeping can be a great way to do that, so that someone else is really taking ownership of those books and all the transactions coming in. So you as the business owner can look at the high level, those P&Ls, and then task someone else with getting things refined down. So that's absolutely a great point that you made there. I think a lot of people are wanting to hear would be, what kind of outcomes or examples can you share of, like, hey, we worked with this business, this is where they were, and after 2 years working together, this was the result. We got X multiple or this much more free time for the owner. Do you have any examples like that you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. I was working with one company that's here locally, and she was complaining about, not really being able to step away, or, not really able to take a vacation. And, she was writing payroll checks by hand, and she'd be writing out like 20 checks in a single payroll, and she'd do like half the company this week and then another or part of the organization the following week. So she's doing multiple checks by hand every single week, and just really overwhelmed by all of it. Like, she gets no sleep, which, I mean, it's pretty common amongst business owners. But yeah, no, we were able to step in and just really start having some conversations with her and identifying those goals. Like, and one of them being like, hey, I want to take a trip to Hawaii. Okay, this is where we want to be. What do we need to do? What do we need to put in place in order to get there? And we were able to, identify, like, first some software issues that could replace some of these payroll. It's one of those things, like, she didn't want to like give up the responsibility and delegate it out to someone else necessarily. Because, I mean, let's face it, when we're business owners, like, we can be very protective of our funds and, who we give access to them. So we didn't necessarily have to give that up. We just brought a software in that could automate some things for her and help her out in that sense. But then also identify some things that she didn't like doing and get those delegated out to her team. We should identify what our hourly rate is and what is worth our time. Anything that doesn't generate that kind of revenue of what we've identified as our worth should be delegated out. And I'm sure that you've probably harped on this plenty with your virtual assistants.
Oh, yeah.
And so we do something, something similar. There's a similar step in our process where we can identify those things, get them delegated out, and then ultimately be able to achieve that trip to Hawaii without the stress and the pain and the 4 a.m. phone calls.
I'm sure a lot of people would love to have that nice trip to Hawaii and not be having the stress of doing really tedious tasks in their business that aren't generating the revenue they want. So it sounds like there's a lot of value that you can help people with. And if people are interested in getting in touch with you and learning more, what's the best way for people to connect with you, Mallory?
Sure. So I do have a website. It's mal-smith.com. You will find in my true ADD nature that I've got a lot of things going on that website. I do own a travel agency, and I do paid public speaking events as well. But there is a link on that website for my operations consulting where you can click on that and get a hold of me. Anybody that reaches out to me and mentions this podcast, I'm willing to do a free 30-minute consultation with them to kind of identify maybe like what one of their pain points is, and I can work through some problem solving with them, or we can talk a little bit more about setting that vision. And if they feel like our time together was valuable to them, we can talk about continuing to work together.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that generous offer. I'd encourage everyone listening to the podcast to definitely hit that link up in the show description, get in touch with Mallory, take advantage of this incredible offer she's offering for this vision setting opportunity and time to think about optimizing your business. Mallory, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and sharing these great tips, and have a great rest of your week.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.